Today, the 25th of June, year 105 of the Hitlerian era, year 1994 of the Judeo-Christian era, on the winter solstice, in the old city of Valparaiso, in the country called Chile, I begin these memoirs. The father of memoirs was not Pythias of Marseille, or Massalia, who sailed in search of the remnants of Hyperborea, nor Julius Caesar, the warrior in Gallia, nor Babar, conqueror of India, nor Marco Polo. It was Benvenuto Cellini, who recommended to write them no later than 40 years of age, before one loses the memory. But it turns out that, with the curious acceleration of time, an inexplicable phenomenon like the deceleration of the sun, which makes one suspect the existence of an external agent, extrastellar, the life of man also lengthens, as a necessary compensation, it seems. Today, men can preserve their memory and publish their biographies into their 80s. As the only rule, I would say that man, not all men of course, writes his memoirs when the nostalgia of the past begins to invade him and he begins to remember what he has experienced as events that are very distant and which, at times, moisten the eyes of the soul when thinking that that was once, just one time, and that perhaps it will never be again. I have brought to my room, along with my pictures and memories, and next to the stone head of Shiva, my 2 German shepherd dogs, Thor and Freya, loyal companions of so many years and battles, to help me evoke and miss those who have already gone, because they see phantasms even better than I do. There, beyond the sea, over the summit of La Campana, stands the immense snow-capped peak of Aconcagua, the highest of the Andes. Today has been a transparent winter day, and I also find myself surrounded by Geminis, including my oldest son, who has just returned from abroad after years of absence. We have had an important generational conversation. This time, Pollux has spoken in him. He has told me of that tremendous thing that is coming upon us, apparently already without remedy, the virtual reality, that is, the synthetic reality of an alien, artificial imagination. I do not wish to enter into using in vogue terms borrowed from the technotronic, psychotronic, cybernetic new science here, not even from the quantum nor the quasaric. I am not going to depart from my ancient, antiquated, simple and human language to thus mark the definitive difference between my world and that other that will supplant us, drowning us like the wave that submerged Atlantis. I am going to mark the ultimate limits where we will wage the final combat in this war, which is more than generational because it is cosmic and even proto-cosmic, against the demon of technology and of the machine, against the iron and against the plastic, against the virtual image, the product of a machine and of an ontological evil anterior to the earth. War that only in a secondary aspect seems to present itself in the generations. Oscar Wilde said, "Nature imitates art." Today, nature imitates the machine. That is to say, man imitates it, assuming that man is also part of nature. And this, the machine having been a product of man, who was born imitating nature, the flight of birds, for example, or the brain of man, the computer. Thus, the children today are born computerized, totally apt at handling the most complicated gadgets. They are born dreaming of computers, when my grandparents did not even dream of automobiles, nor telephones, nor airplanes. My grandmother yelled to speak on the telephone, as she did not understand that her voice could be heard at that distance. Today, furthermore, the children are born with their eyes open. Hesiod, more than 2,000 years ago, said, "When the children are born with their eyes open, it will be the terrible Iron Age. The last, that of the end of this cycle, of this round of the eternal return. The same which the Eddas called Ragnarok, twilight of the gods, and the Hindus Kali Yuga, of the goddess Kali, of destruction, when everything, even the gods, dies." And Hesiod certainly never dreamed of telephones, much less computers, but he was able to know that in 2,000 years more, the children would be born with their eyes open, and this would mean the end of this world on the downward path of entropy, of involution, not the mechanistic myth of evolution. I thus point out the definitive essential difference between those who are born with their physical eyes closed and those who today are born with their eyes open. In the ancient past, the spiritual eye was always open, even if only half open, the so-called third eye. Today, no more and without remedy. Man comes to be a product of the machine, a pure reserve station, a data drawer of virtual programming that, without any capacity, will live in many simultaneous realities at the push of a button, without being in any, without being the owner of any, without being anything or anyone, not even a schizophrenic, because his schizophrenia will also have been programmed, synthetic, virtual. The path of the fall, of the descent into involution, has been enormous, distant, and dark. Already in the times of Hesiod himself, it was hardly possible to know, for the power and the key had been lost. And the most wonderful computer, the human brain, created to express here in the plane of the terrestrial energy the power and the action of the mind as its representation, and to act upon the external and internal matter, began to atrophy for lack of a supreme use in its two alternate hemispheres. The Aryans of India attempted, with varying success, to recover the ancient technique, the lost science, which would allow them to reactivate the marvelous treasure of the human brain, that perfect machine of biology and blood, of an unsurpassed power and delicacy, and which only from within to without, from the invisible mind, could be utilized and revived. These were the techniques and the science of yoga, which could reunite, join the two hemispheres again at will, the unique, the unequaled human computer. In truth, only a few achieved it, and with this it was enough in the great sowing of the cycles, since this is never a matter of the masses, even less today than yesterday. But it was difficult, very difficult. Even my generation attempted it. Some of us aimed to be gods again, those of us born with both eyes closed. And for this reason and forever, we will mark the difference with those of today. A great war was unleashed in the world between those two groups, and I was with the losers, with those who heroically attempted to resurrect the gods, the God-man, putting the machine at their service, something that would only have been possible utilizing the human brain in a higher mode to the maximum and seemingly infinite capacity of the machine, in such a way that the machine itself will cease to be necessary. All the powers of the divine mind and expression throughout the totalized cerebrum, the brain as functional part of the nervous system and of the chakras, vortices and centers of living consciousness, will and representation of the suprahuman, although also our mind, for I and the Father are one. We always knew, with the knowing of Hesiod, that what was at stake in that war was the destiny of man. Today I say it, we were not on the side of Hitler and Hitlerism for political, socio-economic, nor even racist reasons. We were because the mutation of man, the recovery of his divinity and his immortality, with the recreation of the Superman, the absolute man, the total man, the God-man, would have been possible. This is what was attempted in the tantric alchemical laboratories of Wewelsburg, of the SS, and the Ahnenerbe, and other centers of initiation. Inter pares social and economic justice and racial cleansing would come by themselves as a magical consequence. It was not necessary to seek them nor declare them. The technology, the science, starting from the spiritual body, were reduced to an instantaneous situation, like the knowing in the essences that, it is said, the angels have, and even more so, the gods. In the greatest crossroads in the history of life on the planet Earth, as this thing upon which man has existed is called, the war was lost, because it never could be materially won. The victors found themselves in position to give new impulse to the involution conspiracy planned from the mixing of the angels with the daughters of men. And today the children are born with their eyes open and fixed upon the screen of virtual images of computer games, and little fingers pressing the keys of the computers with their little heads ready to be depositories of the chip, which will connect them directly to those robots in such a way as being able to reactivate from afar hidden powers in both cerebral hemispheres, which in the long run will make another mechanical automatic robot out of them, isolated in total solitude and without human communication possible with another individual of their species. All this is an ersatz, a diabolical substitute, an imaginary reactivator, like drugs, which were the immediately previous attempt at cerebral enhancement to replace the efforts of yoga and the authentic ecstasies of the mystics, as Aldous Huxley would explain to me in India in a verbal introduction he gave me to his book, The Doors of Perception, of his experiences with mescaline. There is no time anymore, he told me, for those long asceticisms and tortures. Today, a tablet of LSD is enough. And this is how the victors have destroyed up to 3 generations already, before chaining man to the machine, to the technotronic, with cybernetics, psychotronics, and the sinister manipulation of the human brain. That this has been a conspiracy of centuries, with an extraterrestrial prologue to man's life upon this thing Earth, which now culminates, arriving to its limit, for me is evident. It maintains the same legendary imprint. The current conspirators call themselves futurologists, and just like the Christians before, the Marxists, the Freudians, the Einsteinians, they fanatically proclaim that the past is gone because it was in error, in sin. Poetry, music, philosophy are done with, like the ancient paganism, and now a completely new era is imposed, that of the computer, of the robot, the clone, virtual reality, the internet, telepresence. The rest is nothing. It was nothing. What we are living today is of such gravity for the efforts of transmutation of man into divine, into God-man, into Superman, into Siddha, that to those of us capable of grasping it, it causes us to tremble. The events to come could forever prevent that possibility. However, it is not something unexpected for those who have attempted to glimpse the process from the first manifestation of being. It was pre-visible. Within the non-time, it was already preset by the presence of a strange alien factor. What is coming to us, that which is already here, is the imitation of the truth, the imitation of the Superman, the imitation of the God-man, of the Siddha. It has been called virtual reality and represents the nullification of a possible transmutation of man. The technotronic, the cybertronic, the psychotronic, etc. Not only are they displacing in increasingly natural ways the possible alternate or joint work of the brain, of the human computer, but they are also destroying the virtuality of the chakras, their reactualization and empowerment by some individuals, together with that of the astral body as products of a discipline, by replacing them with a cybernetic suit, the cyber body, which will come to be the astral body of the future, a false son of man. To save the legendary treasure, the only thing left for the progenitors of this son of man remains to take refuge for ourselves in an indestructible bubble of time, in the midst of the disaster that already envelops the planet Gerda, in order to continue the alchemical work of recovery of the divine Siddha, which we were before the plasmation, in order to rediscover the power of Adel, Odal, Odil, of the Vril, of Manna, which allows us, with the single ray of the third eye of the Ajna Chakra, to reduce to nothingness and chaos whence he comes, the demon Mara, expelling him from the great tier of the cosmos in which he today hides. There was only one attempt in our century to change the course of destiny, but the betrayal of the religions and their representatives has been immense. The Catholic Church participated in the conspiracy since its origins. Today it associates itself with the Jews, installing in some point of the Middle East a joint laboratory for cerebral manipulations. Also, the Dalai Lama has become a tragic person upon receiving the Nobel Peace Prize and traveling around the world being used. He has thus given a death blow to Tantric Mahayana Buddhism. If Aldous Huxley, Alan Watts, or Arthur Koestler were conscious of what they did as an important part of the conspiracy after the war, with Toynbee, John Lilly, Timothy Leary, and the rest of the agents of the intelligence service, or of other intelligences, I do not know. In any case, they have been very useful servants for the realization of the plans of the non-Aryan and anti-Aryan futurologists who have led to the destruction of the white race. But the great wave that submerged Atlantis will also do away with the rabbis, for their archetype pre-announces it. The golem disappears with its creator, a twilight of the gods in reverse, non-Aryan. Savitri Devi and some others have dreamed that it is nature that will provide a solution to this drama, putting an end, with a planetary catastrophe, to the evils of mankind, which contravenes its laws and contaminates everything. But it seems to me that illusions are made by them, because there are no natural laws, being only customs, bad customs. What does exist is a synchronism between man and the earth, in such a way that the sinking of Atlantis is also produced by man. Because Earth is a thought, a projected plasmation, which has been fixed and corrupted by demiurgic action, when the divine mage fell upon mixing with the daughters of the earth, with those genetic robots which the shadow projected, and ceasing to be a mage creator, no longer immune to the influences of the enemy. The Kali Yuga is not a natural event. It is not outside, but within. And the Ragnarok will destroy outside and within, even the enemy shadow itself, which now also mixes with its invention, the computer, coming to cohabit with the plastic robot. And at this juncture, we, the survivors of the cosmic war and the last attempt to change the course of fate, entrench ourselves in the ultimate positions, in the confines, defending that which must never die, the poetry of Pindar and Hölderlin, the music of Wagner and Bach, the philosophy of Plato and of Heidegger, wrapping ourselves in their mantle, remembering the heroes and the dead beloved, to reach with them the new day of the resurrection. For this, here, next to the highest window of this castle, contemplating the ocean and the valley of paradise, Valparaiso, I now begin to write the memoirs of he and I, with an ink pen, the same from my old writings, and which I already used in India, while I await the moment that from the depths of the frightening waters of the Pacific, the great wave that sunk Atlantis and Lemuria resurfaces with the white giant and the continent of the spirit.